is Linda Warren Seeley. I'm the Director of the Section of Dispute Resolution for the American Bar Association. Thank you everyone for joining us. Our presenter today is Ms. Susan Guthrie. Susan is a mediator who mediates all over the country using online dispute resolution processes, and she's going to be our speaker today. So Susan, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Linda. And I'm glad that everyone can be here today. I know that we are all facing some challenges in our dispute resolution practices. So my goal for today is to try and give you some really practical, useful information if you find that you are needing to explore online options for your practice. So I did want to just give a little background on me, just so you understand, you have a little understanding of my background and how I came to be an online mediator. I do have a fully online divorce and family law mediation and coaching practice. I am solely online. I have no, hardscape. I don't have an office. And I came to that a few years ago after 26 years of what I suspect was a practice that was very similar to most of yours. I was a family law attorney and mediator with, an office, met with my clients in a conference room, probably like you do. And then I started a few years ago moving around the country with my husband's job, first to California, now I'm in Chicago. And as a result of that, in order to keep working, I decided I was going to start working with clients online. And I just jumped online and started winging it, which is something I will at the start encourage all of you not to do, because I made every mistake in the book and it was a rough transition. And that's one of the reasons why I am giving this program and why I now do train professionals in how to do mediations online, because it's a wonderful platform and it just takes a little bit of setup and you can have an absolutely wonderful practice, as I said, fully online like I am. I do also want to mention that I am your Section of Dispute Resolution membership officer, and I'm also one of the Mediation Committee co-chairs. So I thank you all for being here. If you are not a member of this Section of Dispute Resolution, please consider joining us. This webinar is an example of the type of programming that we try to bring to our members. We pulled this together in just a matter of days because we know you're all looking for information. We're going to have more webinars on topics that will be helpful in the current coronavirus era. And if there is anything that you are facing in your practice that you would like information on, please feel free to reach out to Linda, Gina, Zaina, the staff, to me, because we have a very broad membership with a large background in many disciplines, and there will be, somebody that will be able to help you. So I'm going to just sort of jump in, and I know that this is why, I'm sorry, a couple of housekeeping matters before I forget. I think they mentioned when most people logged on that you are all on mute. We're doing that because right now we have 187 people and rising on this webinar, and we want the recording to both be clear as well as we want you all to be able to hear. That does not mean you cannot ask questions. The actual, presentation portion here is going to take about 35, 40 minutes, I think, and then we'll take another 15, 20 minutes to answer your questions. Please feel free to type them in using the chat function down on your toolbar. That's likely down at the bottom of your screen, and Linda and Gina and everyone are going to be keeping track of that, and they'll be giving me questions at the end. This is being recorded if you're just logging on, so we will be posting a link to this so that you can refer back to it. I'm also going to make the slides available to all of you online, as well as one of our members, Natalie Armstrong-Motin, who has a great practice in marketing for mediators, marketing your practice. she provided us with, me this morning, with a great handout on how to look and do your best in an online video conferencing format. So we'll make that available to you all. And thank you to Natalie for making that available. It's a great tool for you. But we do want you to know that this is a member benefit, and we appreciate that you're all here. Please feel free to reach out to all of us. So I told you that I came online, because of necessity, because of moving around the country. I know that many of you are facing the need to come online because this is what you're facing. Many clients, I am hearing from everyone that their clients are canceling, that nobody wants to meet in person. And so everyone is facing the option of trying to migrate to an online practice. So, one of the things that I will say to all of you is I'm glad that you're open-minded and are here to learn about an online practice. I have always found that it is not the public that is resistant to going online for mediations. They never have been. In fact, these days, our lives are conducted increasingly online, increasingly through our phones. Most of our clients don't even think there's something strange about this. It's us, the professionals, who are unwilling or have been reluctant to try something new, or feel that something will be lost in translation. And now that we're facing a situation where we don't have a lot of choices, I think people are willing to give it a shot. But I want you to know, it's honestly, there's so many benefits to moving online. I am hopeful that even if you're moving online out of need, you're going to find that there are a number of other benefits that come from this. Now, one of the things I want to make sure that we understand here is there's a lot of different things that are under the umbrella of ODR, online dispute resolution. When I'm talking about online mediation, what I'm talking about is simply conducting your mediation or your meeting or your arbitration, but through the use of an online video conferencing program. I'm not talking about artificial intelligence. I'm not talking about, something broader or deeper. And I'm not really talking about telephonic, although some of this may be applicable to that, or text message applications for mediation. I'm talking about getting everyone on a video conferencing program and how you're going to actually conduct the mediation. Now, some points on that. I use Zoom. We're doing this webinar on Zoom. I use Zoom for all of my mediations, and I use Zoom for my webinars. I am not saying you need to use Zoom, however. There are a lot of platforms that have different functionality. I have a few of them listed on here. But what I do want you to be taking into consideration as I go through the functionality is you need to make sure that whatever platform you choose, you're able to conduct the mediation in the functions that I will be talking about. You also need to make sure that it's a completely secure platform. Some platforms are encrypted, others are not. So make sure, if your company is using Skype or GoToMeeting or High5, which is a new one, just make sure that it has the functionality that you are going to need. The other point that I just want to make about using the video conferencing is, I don't know that this is going to be as much an issue as everyone's trying to social distance right now. But I do find that it works best if everyone is remote from everyone else. So if all participants are on a computer and are a participant through the platform, that seems to work best in my experience than having some of the people in one location all on one screen and then another party or parties remote. Again, I think that that's going to be something that is taken care of under the circumstances of today. But there are issues if you're all trying to do it in the same room. You've got everyone who's together trying to be on the same camera, leaning into the same screen, or if they're all using a different laptop, you're going to have feedback issues if you're all using computers in the same room. So I just recommend everybody being remote from each other. And it's actually very easy to do, and we'll be talking about that functionality. So quickly, I do want to just bring up some of the additional benefits of mediating through an online platform that you may or may not have thought of. I think some are more obvious, things like convenience. There's no traffic, there's no travel. Within some limitations, the parties can be anywhere. I do, in fact, work with clients all around the world. I have clients in Australia, clients in Europe, clients in South America, and all across the United States. And as a result of that, it clearly will expand your client base. So depending on what your practice is, if you are a California mediator, you now have the ability to meet clients and work with clients throughout the entire state of California. If you have a national issue, you can work with people across the country. Reduces overhead. This is one that usually gets people's attention when I tell them that my overhead for my practice is less than $100 a month. And that is because all I'm paying for are the programs that I use for my online platform. The Zoom platform that I have a professional account. That is the lowest level of paid account. It allows you to have up to 100 participants in your mediation sessions. And I hope you don't have 100-person mediation sessions, but if you did, and then you will have the ability to have essentially unlimited length meetings. And then I do have a few other programs, and we'll talk about that I find helpful because I have an online practice. It's more comfortable and supportive. Clients don't need to come to your, office or a strange place. They can be in their home. I'm a family mediator. I can tell you that most of my clients are sitting on their couch with their dog, but they can be in their office. It's safer. If you have a high conflict matter, if there's domestic violence, and certainly in this era of the coronavirus, it's safer. And then for clients with disabilities, I have clients who are quadriplegics. I have clients who are deaf, where the captioning works best for them. I mean, there's all different kinds of applications. But there are also some things you need to be aware of. And for me, what it really has boiled down to be the number one issue is also the number one difference. The number one difference between an online and an in-person mediation that is significant to us is that your client's environment is out of your control. So unlike when you are conducting your mediation in your office and you can see who's there, you can see what they have with them, you can see what they're doing, you can control the entire process, you do not have the ability to do that when your clients are in their office, in their home, or in some other place. And this can raise a lot of issues, which we're going to talk about. But the number one thing to be aware of is because it has a significant impact on the client experience, is it can lead to issues with privacy and confidentiality. So I'm going to talk about that at a high level and some of the things that you can do to be taking care of that. So I've broken this presentation down into how to conduct a mediation on Zoom. Again, that's what I use, but just be looking at what the functionality needs to be, not that you have to use Zoom. And then the practical and ethical considerations. So sort of a best practices, and that can be just truly practical little things, but also we're going to go over some of these ethical considerations to make you aware of. So let's start out with your setup and your equipment that you're going to need. And this is relatively simple, but it does take a little bit of thought, or should take a little bit of thought. And that's something I just want to make clear. All of this should not be something you're winging. You should make sure you have put some thought and effort into setting up a professional experience for your clients. Just because we're now all maybe working from home or working on a computer, we still want to put out a professional experience for our clients. So for the actual hardware, you're going to need your laptop or desktop. The larger the screen, the better, I find, only because we are now all reduced to these little pictures on the screen. And when you're sharing your screen, as I'm doing right now, as you can see, I'm now a little head over in the corner for most of you, depending on how you have your Zoom set up. But I'm just a little talking head. I always call it the great and wonderful Oz over in the corner. If you're trying to conduct this on your phone, which you can, and I have in emergencies, it's a very small screen. So the larger the screen, the better. I have many offices and in fact work with clients to set up, large screen TVs on the wall to do this. It's absolutely imperative that you have both a secure Wi-Fi or Ethernet cable connection, and it has to be a good connection. You cannot have an intermittent or spotty Wi-Fi connection if you're going to conduct a Zoom meeting. Zoom takes up a lot of bandwidth. All of the video conferencing platforms do. I also recommend shutting down everything else that you're running on your computer at the same time. But you are going to find that your screen will freeze, that your sound will go wah wah and do that weird internet thing. You have to have a strong and secure Wi-Fi connection. It also cannot be a public connection. That's not a secure connection. I have actually, had my computer hardwired in my home, which is where I conduct all my mediations from. And just as a note, I have a backup computer that I keep just in case something goes wrong with my the computer that I'm using to do the mediation, which has happened. The other thing you're going to need is a microphone. Now, most of you have, current laptops or computers. It's going to have both a microphone and a camera involved, but I have logged on with clients to do mediations who had old computers that did not have a camera or a microphone. So you're going to have that. I have a big microphone because I do a podcast, and I have a special HD camera, again, because I record. You don't need special equipment as long as your picture is good and your sound is good. The other thing you may want to consider having if you're in a noisy atmosphere is having headphones, or if your clients have a lot of background noise, because it can make it easier for you to hear. Do put some thought into what is showing in the background when you are going to conduct your mediations. You want it to look professional. Don't have your dirty laundry on the bed, because a lot of people seem to have their home office in their spare room. You want it to be neutral. Some people that I know want to have just a blank wall. They don't want anything in their background to detract from the mediation experience. Other people, I have an office that has bookshelves, and so I just try to make sure that it's kept neat and clean. There is an option, at least on Zoom, to have a virtual background where you can pretty much put anything back there, a picture, a logo. It does require a green screen. It's a little advanced. I can show people how to do it if you're interested. I'm not going to go through it. I just make you aware that that's available. And then just realize that your appearance as well matters. You are only going to be visible usually from the shoulders up, but make sure that you are that you look professional, as well as that you are aware that you are always going to be on screen. And this is one big difference for us, especially in the beginning, for a lot of people, because we're not used to sitting there in a mediation staring at our own face the whole time. So just realize that your expressions, your face, how you express yourself through your expressions is going to be visible all the time. And just one quick note on lighting, because this is an issue for so many people. Do not do your mediations where you have a window that's bright light behind you and no light in front of you, because you're going to look like Deep Throat during the Watergate era. You're going to be in dark screen. They won't be able to see your face, and you want to warn your clients about that as well. You want everybody to be able to see each other. So you're going to want to have lighting in front of you. I actually have a light set up to my left and to my right. That is, indicated. You don't want it right in front of your face because it's bright light in your eyes, but you do want some light coming in from the sides. Now, when you go to do your meeting, here's some of the functionality that I want you to be aware of that you're going to need to have when you set up your meetings. One of the most important things that I have found that you need to make sure that you have is the waiting room function. So just as you would have a waiting room in your in-person office, and you would not just sit down with the first of the clients to show up and start chit-chatting with them and having a cup of coffee, because that can raise that neutrality issue. You usually would have everyone in either the waiting room or in some place, and then you would start the mediation when everyone has gotten there. So if you don't have a waiting room enabled in your online mediation, then people are just going to start populating the meeting, and you're going to find that awkward moment where one person pops in and there you are already having a conversation. Now, we all know we can stay neutral. We're professionals, but remember that it's the client's perception that is important. So it's very simple. Zoom has a virtual waiting room. It's a function that you can enable when you start the meeting, so that you can get involved, you can have them all come in and just let them know that that's going to happen from the beginning. I put it in my email that gives them the Zoom sign-on information. Please know that you're going to sign on and go into a virtual waiting room, and that, I will be admitting you all when everyone has signed in. But there's a big difference between your in-person waiting room and your online waiting room. And that is, I call the online waiting room the cone of silence, right? They cannot see who else is in that room. They cannot hear anyone else. They're just looking at a white screen that says something along the lines of, please wait for your host to start the meeting, or the meeting will start shortly. So unlike where they're sitting in your office and they know that you're in the conference room waiting for them to get started, they don't know what's happening. And people, because you're online, will start to worry that this is, there's something wrong with the tech. So I have a protocol in place where I say, if people have not signed up, fully all signed on within, say, 5 minutes of the beginning, the start time for your mediation session, I will admit whoever is there so we can talk about what to do. I will also start getting in touch with the parties who are missing to find out what's going on via email or text or phone. But you want to have some protocol in place so that you're not just leaving people there waiting. And that's an important thing just throughout the online process, is to always remember the sensitivity to the fact that you're online, as opposed to all in the same place where the clients know where you are usually at all times, right? They know you're down the hall, or they know you're nearby. Here, the minute they don't hear from you for some extended period of time, they will start to worry that something's gone wrong with the tech. So you definitely, and when you're setting your meeting up, you want to set up for that waiting room, and you're going to use it for a few other things as well. And here's probably two of the biggest functionality issues for us, especially for those of you who do separate caucus style mediations and you do not have joint session. So joint session is easy. People are all in the main meeting room for Zoom or for whatever your platform is, and it's just like your main conference room. Joint session will go on. If you are conducting your mediation in joint session, but find that you would like to do a quick caucus, or it becomes necessary. For those of us who are family mediators, I know that usually I'm in joint session, but sometimes it's a good idea that I talk separately with them. If you're looking for that quick caucus, the easiest way to do that, and the quickest way to do it if it becomes necessary, is to go back to that virtual waiting room function. And it's very simple to just go down to participants as the host, manage participants. And if you click on, when you click on that, it will bring up a list of all the people in the meeting, and you can just click on their names and put them back in the waiting room. Keep in mind, yes?
It's Linda. Real quick, a couple of folks have asked for a quick demonstration of both the virtual waiting room and you know, kind of to see what it would look like. Is that possible maybe towards the end?
I can try to do that. We're in a webinar format, not a meeting format, so I don't know that I can do that here, but I can describe it more clearly.
Okay, thanks.
If that would be helpful. So when you log on to a Zoom meeting where the waiting room function is enabled, it does not the participants do not populate right into a visible online screen where they can see all the participants. What they will see is a white screen that says, that's in the middle of their computer screen, that says, please wait for the meeting host to start your meeting. Now, the host has likely already started the meeting, but they have not admitted people from that waiting room or the cone of silence. And that's an action that the host needs to take. They can do that down on their toolbar as people are there. Then the people's picture will come up on the screen and they'll be visible to everyone. But while people are in the waiting room, the only person who will know who's there, because the host will have a toolbar that tells them who's in there, that's the only person who will know that. So it's really just a blank screen, and then you would be clicking on it. Now, because of the timing of this webinar, it's not possible, you know, when I do my training, it's a couple of hours long because it takes that long to go through all this functionality. I do want to point out, if you're using Zoom, Zoom has a fantastic web online video tutorial section in the support. It's in your upper right hand corner. I highly recommend that you go and watch. They have short 1 to 2 minute videos on all of these functions that will show you screens and show you little videos of what it all looks like. Strongly urge you all to do that if you're considering using Zoom or whatever platform you're thinking about using. But because of our time limitations here today, I can't take you through every single function. Plus, we're doing it in a webinar format, not a meeting format. And I'm going to say the same thing about the breakout room. So I talked about, if you are simply looking to put one of the parties into the waiting room, will you have a private caucus with one and then switch that out, the waiting room function will work best. But if you are going back and forth and doing the shuttle diplomacy between conference rooms in your in-person mediations, and you do not do joint session, you are going to want to be sure to know how to use the breakout rooms. So the breakout rooms will be your best friend. They are the most important and critical function. You must watch the videos online on Zoom in the tutorial, but let me explain the differences here. So I've told you that the virtual waiting room is the cone of silence. The breakout rooms are separate private meeting rooms. So they are like your other satellite conference rooms. The people in breakout rooms can see each other and can talk to each other. So if you have attorney-assisted mediation and the clients and the mediator and their attorneys are to be in separate rooms, you can set up as many breakout rooms as you need to have. So you could have a huge mediation with 15 different separate types of parties, and you can set up 15 breakout rooms. Here's one of those places where online mediation is actually easier, and for us, much more functional online. It is something that you can either set up the breakout rooms at the time you set up the meeting, or it's very easy to do while you're in the meeting. It is a host function. So all of you as participants will not be able to see this on your toolbar, but when you are the host of the meeting, down on the toolbar is a breakout room function. You click on it. It asks you how many rooms you want to create as many as you like. And then it allows you to assign participants to the different rooms. And then you have the ability to travel between those rooms. And that is how many of you who do separate caucus style mediation, your entire process will be going back and forth between those rooms. The difference is, as I like to say, is you're no longer running up and down the hall in high heels like I used to have to do. You now can just Send a chat. I do recommend that you, just as you would knock on the door of a conference room, you don't just pop into the breakout room, that you send a chat saying, are you ready? I've just finished with breakout room 1 and I'm ready to talk to you. Are you ready for me? And then go in. So again, encourage you all to watch the tutorial video on this and practice with all these functionality, all this functionality that you need to have. But the good news for everyone is it's very simple. For me, I think Zoom, one of the reasons why I use it is because it's very intuitive. When you have a chance to practice on it, you're going to see that clicking on these buttons brings up additional screens that makes it very clear what you want to do. But there is no substitute for practicing. And I will tell you all that clients are very open-minded to online mediation right up until we don't know what we're doing, or there's tech issues, and then they start to think that the tech is interfering with their process. So as I said in the beginning, there is no substitute for going on, downloading the program, and practicing yourself watching those videos. It's very important. But 2 of the most important functions, waiting room and breakout rooms, or whatever they might call that on your separate platform if you're not using Zoom, but make sure that you have the ability to do that. You will also find that there's other functionality that, again, I think makes it even easier to mediate in an online platform. The screen sharing function, which I'm doing right now to share this PowerPoint presentation with you all, is one of my favorite functions. I never do a mediation without in some way screen sharing. And just a few examples. I can, if I have drafted the agreement for the parties and need to review it, I can pull that up. I can make changes to it. We're all looking at the same screen just as we all are right now. I can pull up if I'm doing financial calculations, say I'm calculating child support. I can pull that screen up and we can all watch it. At the same time as I'm inputting numbers, as the program is running things, if we're moving figures around, all of that can be done by sharing your screen. Quick tip, be sure if you know you're going to be sharing information from your computer, different programs, documents, items online, take 5 minutes before your mediation starts and open those up on your computer so that when you go to the share screen function, which is on your toolbar, it will bring up, when you click on it, all of the open screens on your computer, and you just go through there and pick out which ones you think are, which is the one that you want to share. And then you can go through between screens. Importantly, your participants can share their screens as well. This becomes really helpful if one of them goes, oh yeah, but what about this? And they have something that they need to show, or they've done a calculation, or something comes up that they want to be able to share. They can do the same thing. One of the other things that I love and use all the time is there's a whiteboard function in the screen share. So when you click on screen share, whiteboard, so Zoom has a built-in whiteboard. There's also, I have the iPad Pro, the really big one. You can hook up and through Bluetooth, connect your iPad, your tablet, your iPhone to your Zoom screen and show anything that's on your tablet or iPad or phone on your screen. I find that's very helpful because I use this large one as my whiteboard. I pull up a nice like Word document, and then I use a stylus, and it's easier for me because I can hold on to it. I probably use this in every single mediation. Very easy to connect, and it walks you through the process when you go to the screen share. So let's go into some of the practical and ethical considerations. So best practices, and some of these are really practical. These stem from mistakes that happened when I was trying to wing it or when I was learning how to do this. And some of these are the important ethical considerations that we need to take into consideration because our client's environment is out of our control. So first of all, I point this out and I mentioned it earlier. If you are doing an online mediation or any type of online meeting, think ahead of the fact that your clients are never physically going to be in your location. They're never going to be there where they are there to hand you documents, sign documents, give you a check to pay you. So you need to put some thought to keep the process smooth, to be prepared. You need to put some thought into a few things. One is how you're going to share and store their documents. Now, you probably all have secure document transmission, Dropbox, Google Drive, things like that. But think about this ahead of time, because again, they're not going to come in if you're a family mediator, or they're going to be sending you a bunch of pleadings or whatever's happening. Make sure that you tell them about this and that you have it in place. If you don't already have one in place, you're going to need something for the signing and execution of documents. So I use DocuSign, and there's a few things behind this. One, you're going to have a mediation agreement with your clients. You want them to sign it. They're not going to be in your office to do it. You want to keep this as easy and as simple as possible. I use DocuSign, and I will tell you, once I started using that, I started getting signed agreements back from clients in a matter of minutes rather than waiting for them to download it, sign it, scan it, and send it back to me. I also, in certain states in which I practice, the court system will accept DocuSigned documents. And so that's been very helpful, say in Connecticut where I practice, where they will accept those documents. Other states, you're going to need wet signatures. So think ahead about that. How are you going to get those wet signatures? Are you going to send them the documents and they would have to print them out? Are you going to FedEx them? I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm telling you, you need to think about it and have something in place about how that's going to happen. And importantly, we are a business. We need to get paid for our time. You need to have a payment function enabled, whether you're using an online payment platform or whether people are giving you a check in your office. Think about it ahead of time, because now if you've been operating on a check basis, you'll be waiting for the check in the mail, which is not always the most comfortable situation for people. I personally have both Square and PayPal set up for processing my credit cards or for clients to pay me through that. Both of them I happen to like because you can send an invoice, which just means they have to click a button to pay. There's also Venmo. So PayPal and Square have they're going to charge you, right? There's a merchant charge for using them. Venmo is cash directly into your account. Some clients are comfortable. Again, I'm doing family. Many of my clients are very comfortable using Venmo. People are using Venmo all the time these days. If you do not want to use one of these, be certain that you have some way in place. If you're using a retainer or you're getting paid up front, just make sure you think about it ahead of time so that there's no fumbling around to get paid. Another thing that I know many mediators will do is include a provision in their retainer agreement with a credit card authorization that authorizes the credit card to be charged at certain designated times for, the mediation fee upon the transmission of additional invoices, whatever that might be. The key here is think about these things ahead of time and know how you're going to handle them. These, the things that are on the screen are just my personal choices. There's a lot of other choices out there. But also, let the clients know what programs you're going to use. I mean, obviously, if you're going to use an online platform to mediate, you need to let them know ahead of time what it is. And you need to let them know what the requirements of these programs are on their part. If you're going to use Zoom, they're going to need to download Zoom either as a free user, or they're going to need to download the support. Under support, there's a Zoom client download where they don't actually have to open an account, but they can download the software to use it for mediations. One good thing to know for all of you, the clients do not have to have a paid account. only the host has to have a paid account so that the meetings will be longer than 40 minutes. The free Zoom account only allows for 40-minute meetings, so it will not work, but the clients can have the free account.
Susan, real quickly,
Yes.
what if somebody doesn't have online access? Do you ever use it using just the telephone function? And how does that affect the outcome?
So I do work. I do handle it telephonically at times. I'm not a huge fan of a telephonic mediation if there's a capability of having the people on screen. You know, studies show that 85% of our communication is visual. A lot of that is our facial expressions, and a lot is missed. And I know many of you have reservations, and this has always been what I hear from professionals about online mediation is, oh, you miss that, lose that personal touch. You don't, I don't believe, and have not found when you can see each other. But I do find that things can be lost in translation when it is only voice. Now, I say that I've done it if there's no other option and the parties really want to make some progress. Certainly, just having someone available by telephone is better than not having the mediation at all. But overall, I truly encourage people to find some way to get online. And I will point out that even if their laptop or their desktop does not have a camera, their phones do. So they can log on and be on camera through their phone and still do, I mean, they could either do the audio through the phone, or they can log on and have both going at the same time. But I much prefer having the visual. So when it comes to, when I talk about this fact that your client's environment is out of your control, one of the things that I think has been the most important factor in making my online practice successful is that I've created a document that educates and informs my clients ahead of time and repeatedly and in depth. I call it my online guidelines and ground rules. It's a 3-page document that contains all of this information that I'm talking about, and I give it to them repeatedly. I give it to them before the first consultation when they're deciding whether they want to hire me. I give it to them attached to my mediation agreement. And I review it in my first session at a high level with them. And I refer back to it all the time. That document is a part of my online mediation training. You can, I mean, I'm giving you all of the information in this presentation that would be contained in there, but I suggest you create something, put it in writing. Do not presume that your clients know or understand all of these things that we're talking about here. There's nothing to be lost in giving them information ahead of time, and understand that this is how you take as much control as you can of their environment. So it's very important that you in some way get this information across to them. Again, create your guidelines, ground rules. We have them anyway. We tell our clients ground rules usually at the beginning. You're going to need to add to that if you're doing this in an online platform. So privacy and confidentiality, 2 of the biggest impacted issues that have to be discussed with your clients. And I say this because I've had problems. And so here's where, if you do nothing else in this presentation, please learn from my mistakes here. With respect to confidentiality, the first thing, and this is an issue I think in any mediation, but the first problem is that most clients don't even understand what we mean by mediation confidentiality. So they need to understand what the privilege is, and they need to understand that if they do things that violate the privilege, they're only creating issues for themselves. So you need to inform them of what the evidentiary privilege is under your jurisdiction's laws and code. And if you're going to be like me and you're going to work in multiple jurisdictions, you have to put the time and effort in to create my online guidelines and ground rules are different for every place that I mediate, because it's a different level or standard that they need to know about. But they need to understand what the privilege means, that it's an evidentiary, exclusion, and we are responsible for getting that information to them. So as an example, I have it in both my mediation agreement. It's also in the guidelines and ground rules. And then you also here need to explain to them privacy, and how it's different and why it's so important. And here's where I've had some of the biggest issues. Privacy in your conference room is not a problem, right? You know who's in there, you know who can be, overhear it. But now you have clients and people participating who are somewhere else, and all you can see is what's on their computer screen. So you have no concept of who else is in the room, who can overhear, and they need to understand how important it is that this process remain private. It is one of the main benefits of mediation. It's why many people choose mediation, and clients can unknowingly or even knowingly, in some of my cases, they can violate it and you don't know. So all you can do is take as much control as you can. You need to tell them, and this should absolutely be in your guidelines and ground rules, there can be no third parties in the room where they are conducting their session. I had one gentleman who went to Starbucks and logged on to their public Wi-Fi, despite all of my rules, to do his divorce mediation, because he didn't seem to think there was a problem with 50 strangers overhearing him talking about his money and his kids. They also, it's not just other people in the room, they have to make sure other people can't overhear the process. And that's important. I've had people doing the mediation in their home with the kids in the room next door, watching television, or the nanny, making lunch in the kitchen. They need to be in a place where people cannot overhear what is being said. It has to be a secure Wi-Fi. Public Wi-Fi is not going to fly. They can't do it. They have to be on a secure Wi-Fi. They can't go to Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, get it off their neighbors. They need a secure Wi-Fi. And very importantly, because everyone seems to know that we're recording this webinar, Zoom allows recording. I make it very clear to clients at the beginning that I am not going to record the mediation sessions, and that they are not permitted to under any circumstances. Now, one thing I want you all to realize is that even in an in-person mediation, it is possible for clients to record it. They can come in with their phone and have the audio recording going. I've heard a case from another mediator where someone had their phone in their pocket of their jacket facing outward, and they were recording the visual as well. They were doing a video recording. I do not, I let them know all you can do is set the ground rule that cannot be done. I also do not do it, as I said. I do know there are mediators out there who do not have a problem recording. That is your personal choice. It is not my choice. I do not want to be the custodian of that type of record. They will ask you. Because they know it's a possibility, and they will have many reasons. They want to be, it's a difficult process. They want to be able to look back on it. They want to be able to pay attention without taking notes. Whatever those reasons are, it is something I choose not to do. You need to have your policy in place about your recording, but also about their recording. Some additional ground rules for them and for us that help to make the process simple and seamless would be to establish a few ground rules. So an interruption-free zone. Make sure, remember, they're in their home or their office. Tell them to turn off the phone, to tell their secretary not to let people in, to put a note on the front door that they can't be disturbed. They need to take a technology hiatus. Clients are now on their computer or on their phone. You'll see them answering emails, text messaging. You can tell they're doing it. You can hear the clicking of the keys. Tell them that you'd want their full attention in person. You want their full attention online. I always suggest an early log on. Even 5 minutes is enough to usually work through any problems that are going to happen with the log on. And tell them to be respectful and to have effective online communication. We all usually do that in our opening, but it's a little different online. When two people are talking in an online platform, often the platform will cut one of them off completely. So unlike being in person, it's often will happen that one of them is not heard at all, and they will think they were because they don't know. So I also tell them that. I also tell them if they're hand users, that's fine, but no, they got to use it up here. And also just know everything's amplified because your facial expressions are now on the screen. So I just let them know, that that is something, the leaning in or all of that. Here's one that's an absolute must-have. And this has been the lifesaver, as you see, I call it. You have to have some simple protocols in place in case of tech failure, because sooner or later, if you're doing online mediations, you're going to have tech failure. The battery's going to die on someone's laptop. The computer's going to reboot. Their Wi-Fi is going to go out. So think about it ahead of time and let the clients know what to do. I keep it simple, stupid, the KISS method. I tell them to try to log in first. And if that doesn't work, to call me, and I give them my cell phone number. That's my personal method. It works beautifully. I put it in writing with them. It's in the guidelines and ground rules. And I can't tell you how many times clients have said, oh, thank God you told me what to do. I didn't worry about it at all. They are fine as long as they know what to do. So just make sure tell them to call your secretary, tell them, whatever that might work, tell them to send an email. Just have some sort of protocol in place, put it in writing, make sure they know it. So final words, and then we'll go to questions. First and foremost, I encourage you all to add an online platform to your practice. It is well worth it, way beyond what's happening in our world today. You have to take the time to learn how to use the programs, however. It's imperative that you know what you're doing, or the clients will lose faith in the online process. If something goes wrong, do not freak out. Everybody does it. If you stay calm, they will stay calm. Know that something is going to go wrong. Just be prepared for it. And if you're doing it online, especially today, get out there and let people know that you are offering your services online. People are looking. I cannot tell you the outreach I am receiving right now. I cannot possibly keep up with it. If you are going to offer online, let me know. I hopefully can refer to you. There are people desperate to find online mediators to help them with their dispute resolution process right now. So I'm going to stop there. Linda has been keeping track, and I've been seeing the chat function light up
yes.
over there. So let's go, Linda.
Okay, so the question most frequently asked is, are you willing to share your guidelines, some of your documents, the samples that you have talked about, if you would be willing to make those available along with the marketing piece?
So I apologize, but my guidelines and ground rules are a trademarked and licensed product. So I can't just give it to everyone without giving you a license also, a document to allow everyone to use it. It is a part of my online training program. It comes with it, but I don't just disseminate them at will because of the licensure issue. But I have given you the contents of what's in there for you to be able to create your own, so that and truly this is a document that needs to be personalized to what your practice is. So even my trainees who get it, and I know many of my trainees are here on this call, it's something that I give to people in a Word document with the license to use it, limited to that person. But they have to conform it. So I am going to make all of these slides available to everyone, and the contents are in here. You will need to create your own online guidelines and ground rules. But again, everything that you need is in here. I condensed it into these slides.
So I'm going to turn to an ethical question. Are there any required certifications in the states where you conduct online mediation?
So that will depend on your state and on your jurisdiction, and the onus is on you to go find that out. I will say, as we all mostly know, there are not a lot of there's not a lot of regulation around our particular practice. So there that I know of for online mediation, if that is the question, I do not know of any states that have a certification requirement for online mediation.
Great. What about if you are an attorney? Do you have to get admitted pro hoc vice to actually be involved in a mediation in a different jurisdiction?
So that would be, again, something that you need to check out with your particular bar association, but it would depend on what your role is. If you are a mediator, you are not providing legal services. So you are acting as a neutral. So in those instances, I would say that it would be my personal opinion that you are acting as a neutral. You are not required to be an attorney admitted in that state. I do not know of a state that you have to be an admitted attorney in order to conduct mediations. If you are going to be providing services in another state, I would say if you had to be admitted or have special admittance in order to represent a client in a proceeding in that state, you would need it for the mediation, even if it's online as well.
So do you ever get any pushback about having a client in a space without his or her lawyer being in the same space?
I do not, because they are together in their breakout room. They have at least as much contact as they would have in person, other than they're not sitting across a conference table together. They certainly could be in the same place, although I think you're going to get pushback on that under these circumstances. But I have never had a case where this was an issue. And in fact, I bring in experts and other collateral professionals all the time into my mediation process. I work with family therapists. I work with financial professionals. People pop in to my mediations all of the time. People very quickly forget that they are in an online platform, and as long as they can see each other and communicate, they do not seem to have an issue. I get no pushback at all.
So you can put them in a breakout room. They can chat with each other confidentially and privately without worrying about the other side seeing. Can they also share documents with each other in that room?
Yes, the online, so in the online platform, the breakout room is essentially a separate Zoom meeting. So everything that you could do in the one main Zoom meeting, they can do in their Zoom meeting. So sharing documents, they're seeing each other the same way that we would all see each other, and people can be taken in and out of those rooms. It takes some practice. I'm not going to tell you it doesn't. The breakout rooms are the most important function. As I said, for most of you, you're going to need to practice with it, but it's much the same as if you had a hallway with a bunch of different conference rooms off of that hallway, and you had different groups of people in all those rooms. The only difference is you're doing this all virtually instead of running up and down the hall and knocking on doors.
So do you need a professional account to do the breakout rooms?
Well, you need a professional account if you're going to do a mediation, because unless your mediations are less than 40 minutes long, you can't use the free format anyway. So it's a kind of a moot point. I do not know, to be honest, if the breakout rooms are available on the free account as host.
Okay. Can only one person or administrator move people to or from the waiting and/or breakout rooms? What if you have more than one? What if there are co-mediators? Can only one person control the function?
Yep. So if you have co-mediators, they are co-hosts. That's part of the setup. Or during the meeting, the original host can make anyone who's a participant in the meeting a co-host or switch them over to being the host. Anyone with hosting capabilities has the breakout room abilities and has the waiting room function ability.
Okay. Have you ever made a mediator's proposal using this functionality?
No, I don't
No.
use mediators proposals in family law. So it's just not a part of my practice.
Okay. Um, the question is a little complicated. The questioner says that they have a multi-party, often do multi-party mediations with up to 15 parties. And the question is, how do I segregate plaintiffs in a multi-party mediation like that? Can I create a plaintiff's room and keep everybody else in a waiting room? Should I create a defense-only room?
So you can create as many breakout rooms as you like. The breakout room function is sort of unlimited. So if you decided you wanted each one to be in a separate breakout room, you could do 15 breakout rooms. But yes, you could have a plaintiff's breakout room, but if your plaintiffs are not all aligned and you maybe want them in separate breakout rooms, you could have, and you can name the rooms as well. So if you have a number of rooms, you're definitely going to want to name those rooms as you're creating them so that it's easy for you, because remember, you're all visual here. But you can have, you know, party green plaintiff, party brown plaintiff. You can have separate breakout rooms for all the plaintiffs, and then you can merge the breakout rooms. You can take the people from breakout room 2 and put them in breakout room 1, just as you would do in physically by opening the door and letting them in. This is clicking the mouse, but this is all part of the functionality of the breakout rooms. And it makes that process, I mean, anything that you could do with your people in person other than touch them, you're going to be able to do in some fashion, at least through Zoom.
Great. Are there any particular disclosures or concerns or protocols for self-represented litigants? How do you address the equity issue where one party is represented maybe and one's not?
I'm not sure I understand the equity issue, meaning, you know,
So,
most of my clients are self-represented because I'm dealing with divorcing clients. I'm not usually doing attorney assisted. I do some of that, but most of my clients are two people who are deciding they want to get divorced and they want to sit down with a mediator to work out all of the issues. So other than the same disclosures and information that I had in my retainer agreement about the fact that I'm not their attorney, that I recommend that they have consulting counsel, that I'm not rendering legal advice, all of those usual ones that I would normally have. I don't have additional disclosures in there because I'm online. Is that?
I'm not sure. That was
If
just
that
a
person has an additional question, let me know.
okay.
Yep.
Do you schedule by email or do you use an online tool? Is there, say, somebody goes onto your website and can they schedule a mediation there?
So I don't do it on my website because I want to have a little more control. I find I do allow people to schedule my consultations online, but I do the scheduling of my mediations myself because I want to make sure that I have the appropriate amount of time. I also schedule them for 2 hours at a time because I'm usually doing consecutive sessions. So that would depend on your type of practice. But so there are two different ways to do it. You can create your meeting online on Zoom and then send the sign-on information as an invitation that you essentially cut and paste or create the email through Zoom and send it out to the clients. Or I have integrated my calendar, and I highly recommend doing that because then through your calendar, you can send a calendar invite to the clients. Clients love that because it populates their calendar automatically when they click accept. I love it because it goes directly into my calendar and I don't have to go through multiple steps. If you have, I use Google Calendar and Zoom. Once you coordinate the two of them together and you integrate them, I can actually just go straight to my Google Calendar, make a meeting a Zoom meeting, and that will send all the information, including the Zoom sign-on information, directly to the clients. The one thing that you want to make sure if you're doing it through your calendar is that you have the presets for your meetings, including the virtual waiting room. Because if you do not have that box checked in the meeting setup as your default, then you're going to have the people populating the meeting as they sign on to the meeting, as opposed to going into the virtual waiting room.
So a number of people have been asking about your additional training. Gina provided a link to your learntomediateonline.com.
Oh, yeah.
Is that there you go. Thank you,
There. Yeah.
Susan.
I actually have a webinar tomorrow at noon Eastern. You can find the information for that on Learn to Mediate Online. I'm doing another one on the 27th. That will be the full run. It's about 2 hours, a little bit longer, because the webinars have been so full lately, and I'm trying to make sure I get all of the information and questions answered. So they're running closer to about 2.5 hours right now, but I'm trying, to make sure that we're all ready to be up and running. I also have a newsletter. If people want to sign up for that, I'm sending information out. Anything, I'm going to meet with Modron, that online platform, later today. If I think it's a good idea and you all might want to know about it, I will put that out on the newsletter. So if you would like to sign up for that, I encourage it. I want to be a resource to people, especially my ABA dispute resolution section colleagues. Please feel free to reach out to me. I've been really working overtime to try and help people get up to speed. I think you're all, if you can't tell, I get very excited about the fact that online mediation is out there and that you're all starting to try it, because it's been a wonderful boon to my life and my practice. And I think you're all going to enjoy it once you get a chance to try it.
Do you want to take any more questions?
Sure.
Okay. So there is a question. What are your thoughts on other forms of dispute resolution outside of formal mediation? For example, an ombuds might bring parties together but not formally mediate.
I think that any meeting is able to be conducted in this format, and I think that if we're able to bring, an ombuds meeting, any type of, I just spent the weekend training my husband's hospitality company on how to use Zoom for the functionality. I think it's a fantastic medium to take what we do in the broad spectrum of what we do: ombuds, arbitrators, mediators, peacemakers, facilitators, coaches, anything that we can do. If we can reach more people, and we can through the online platform, I think this is a boon to our practice, to our section. And it's very, once you get past these little, learning curve, this is a very easy format. The other thing I do want to say, Zoom is the most popular of the online platforms. So you're going to find most of your clients will have some familiarity with it. That's another reason why I like using it. It's the most used by businesses. So they're probably already using it.
And just as an FYI, when I set this up as a webinar, I had Zoom support online with me, and they assured me that even as we were speaking, they were adding servers. So they're well aware that they are being called on to do some extra duty. So Susan, can the clients go into the breakout room without you?
Yes. They don't, so let me make sure I'm saying yes to the right question. Can they put themselves in the breakout room without me? No. Okay. The host has the controls over who moves, because you don't want them like wandering the hallways and going to talk to each other, perhaps, as you might not want them to in person. So they would need to send you a chat. If attorney B wants to go talk to attorney A, which happens all the time, you may want to set up breakout room 3 and put attorney A and B in there. But you will need to do that. It's very easy for them to let you know they want that to happen. They send you a chat.
How do you warn people that you are going to join their particular breakout room?
Great question. You would, just as you would knock on the door, you are going to send them a chat. That the chat is your communication tool within the breakout rooms. What I usually say is, Bob and attorney Brown, I just finished talking with Mary and her attorney. Are you ready for me yet? Or here's another important point. Just as I said before, people can get a little squirrely if you leave them in the video, in the online virtual waiting room if you leave them sitting there for too long. The same thing can happen if you leave people in a breakout room for an extended period of time without checking in. Because unlike where they're in your physical space and they know you're just down the hall, if you leave them for an extended period of time in a breakout room, in the virtual waiting room online, they start to worry that something's gone wrong with the tech. So I make it a practice that if I'm spending a long time in another caucus or another session, that I send a quick, I'll say, let me just take a moment and let the other people know we need a little more time to talk. And I'll send a chat over to the other room saying, hey, we're still talking. Just wanted to let you know, I think I'll be with you, in the next 15, 20 minutes. Or have that discussion ahead of time. Hey, this could be an extended time frame. If I'm still in there after half an hour, I'll check in with you. And I do keep my phone, there. If you need to set a quick timer, just so that you're aware of these things, you need to be a little more facile in keeping track of the time that's going on, and just a little more sensitive to the fact that the people are not in your location. But that's really easy to do. And so yes, the chat function is your best friend with the breakout rooms.
Can you fairly quickly summarize the practical steps to add an online platform to your practice? Say, go to the Zoom website, you can register to open an account. There's videos and things like that you can look at. And also, are there other free online options that people might consider that you're aware of?
Yes, sure. So you just summarized signing up for Zoom. Go to zoom.us, sign up for, you can start practicing on the free account to see if you like Zoom. So you will need to establish a free account, but much of the functionality comes with the $14.95 per month pro account. That's what I have. They have higher options. I have never needed anything more than the $14.95 a month pro account. And then you do need to spend some time. So it involves downloading the Zoom platform and then setting up your account. Now, a few things with setting up your account. This is a professional account. You want it to look professional. Put your name on there professionally. Put the name of your business on there. If you have a logo or a picture of yourself, I'm going to just turn off my video for a second. And hopefully my picture just turned to a picture of me instead of my video of me. You can upload a picture of yourselves. If you see Gina on here, she's got a picture of herself. If you are a business and have a logo, you can upload your logo, but you want to take the time to set up your account so that it looks professional. And then I strongly urge you to go through the video training tutorials that Zoom has. They are, as Linda pointed out, they are getting a huge outreach of people because Zoom has suddenly become it already was one of the most popular. It's now super hot. And the founder of Zoom just made the platform available, I believe, for free to schools. So they're just getting a huge outreach right now. But those video tutorials, truly are incredibly helpful. They're very simple and they walk you through everything visually. But I will tell you, they can show you 15 times how to do something. Until you practice and do it yourself, you are not going to be proficient at it. I always recommend to my trainees that they either group together and set up a time where they can all practice, or get some of your family members or somebody. Don't practice on your clients. Practice on some guinea pigs that you set up yourself.
Well, now that you mentioned that, what if you had someone to serve as, say, tech support, and they might log on as a co-mediator? Can they be a pretty much silent participant unless needed? And would they need to sign the confidentiality agreement? So I think that's kind of akin to what you and I are doing, where I'm kind of fielding the questions and funneling those to you.
So you mean like an admin staff?
Right. Mm-hmm.
You could certainly, but yes, you would absolutely have to disclose that to the participants. And if you're going to have, as you would if you brought someone into your mediation in person. Anything you would do in an in-person mediation, you're going to have to figure out how to do it in the online. So if you were going to have somebody coming in to your online mediation, I wouldn't do that without the permission and the agreement of the parties. If it's not your practice to do that, then I don't know that you would have to do it in the online platform. But participants are visible to the other participants, maybe not on screen, but if you go down to the toolbar and look at participants, like I'm looking at the participants right now, and we have 175 people on this call. Your participants in a meeting are also going to be able to see how many participants, and if they click on it, it's going to tell them who's in that meeting. So they're going to know. So you need to at least provide the information. I would say also get their agreement, and if there is a confidentiality, it depends on how your confidentiality is created. If it's not, I'm just going to stop sharing now, so that's not on there. If your confidentiality is created by statute or by evidentiary code, it still applies regardless of who's there.
So one of the questions has to do with the audio for you, Susan, is clearer than the audio for me. I use the headphones that plug into my ear and have a separate speaker. What do you use? Because you're so much clearer than me.
So I don't recommend the earbuds with the one that you would use on your phone, only because what I have found happens is as the line moves, you can get brushing noises off of your clothing, or as it swings, people will get softer or not. I do have a professional recording microphone with a sound thing, a buffer on it. They call it a pop filter. Now I have that. That's an expensive accessory. Well, that one's, I think, only like $100. But I have that because of my podcast. You don't have to have, in most cases, a professional microphone. It does help. Having a good setup. I also have an HD. I'm just looking for it back here. Sorry. I have an HD add-on camera that I wasn't using it for this, but this is an HD camera that will give you a sharper picture as well. If you have an up-to-date laptop, usually you're going to have a newer camera with a higher capability on that, as well as a better microphone. But you are going to, if you have a bad microphone, or if the microphone is not good on your laptop or your computer, something like this, you can get at Amazon, and it's a USB plug-in. And if you're going to be doing videos or anything like that, additional things that I talk about in some of my webinars, you're definitely going to want to get a plug-in microphone.
Great. Well, Susan, I'm going to end this particular discussion. We've covered most all of the questions. A number of people asked me to tell you thank you so very much for doing this. You did a great job. Everybody really appreciates that. Please, everybody, remind other listeners and folks that that the copy of this particular recording is going to be posted on the ABA section of Dispute Resolution's website, along with Susan's PowerPoint slides. Thank you for joining us. We certainly hope that you will join the section and watch our website for some additional training opportunities. I've made copious notes, and we do hope to provide additional training on remote options and the considerations that go along with that. So thank you again, Susan. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and feel free to reach out to me, Susan at Learn to Mediate Online, if you have more questions.